Hello, everyone. I am Zakiya Johnson. I'm currently a dance performance major at ASU. And I'm here to just share a little bit about my creative process, how quarantine has impacted me, and hopefully some cool things that other people can try at home and incorporate into their own creative practice. A lot of my research focuses on the capacity dance has to impact participants' understanding of empathy towards and behaviors towards various social challenges society faces today. I was born in Nassau, Bahamas, and so I'm classically trained in ballet and Afro-Caribbean forms. That definitely changed when I moved to the US, and there was a lot that had to do with identity, and now I'm at ASU and I'm learning about anatomy, postmodern contemporary, and kind of just how to explore culture and identity through dance. I've worked with notable organizations, so the Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program. So I work with middle schoolers and encouraging them to contribute to the betterment of society, and then also movement exchange as a dance diplomat in Brazil. And so that's kind of my background. I really wait, is this in one? I'm just gonna keep on going. I've performed at, Black Teen X, various performances in Arizona, and then also some theater works at Purdue University in Indiana. Right now, I'm currently focusing on my capstone project, my transitions project, and it's called Pain for Public Consumption. What does that mean? I am working with various installations to create imagery. And this goes along with, how I was impacted by COVID. So that's me. I'll transition into COVID and my current situation right now. It was very interesting at first, I think, because my environment was different. So I was no longer dancing in a studio. I was at home. And at first I felt kind of like I was in my living room doing a Zumba class, didn't really know what was going on. So there's definitely a cognition change that had to happen just as I watch a video and reflect it instead of watching a person live. But I really saw that it allowed me to become more intimate in my movement, more vulnerable, because I was dancing in a space that was familiar. And I was usually by myself, right? So dancing in a space that's familiar and dancing alone, that can create some vulnerability and intimacy with your own body, with your own environment, that I didn't have before, I think, because I was in studios all the time, and I was with other people. So with that comes a lot of other privileges. But then I was also able to see the privileges that came dancing in my home. So while it's familiar, it's not always necessarily known. So although you see your kitchen every day, you see your bedroom every day, you see your living room every day, it's familiar, but it's not always known. So I think through this, I've become definitely more aware of the necessity to explore spaces of familiarity. So for example, I would improvise in my living room, but then it's what is that external awareness looking like? Am I just looking at the ground, or am I looking at everything that is in this room and how it's impacting my movement? And so I think there was definitely this shift in how I saw myself creating dance, how I saw myself dancing in space through time. And so with that, I think my capstone project changed drastically because it's not me creating something for a stage. I then have to take into account people have to be 6 feet. It might be broadcasted. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with that. So then my creative process, I started getting comfortable in that uncertainty. And so my capstone project, I won't go into detail about, I guess, what it's about. You'll just have to come see it in February. But I'll go into my process. I started creating more experiences having to do with different locations because I wasn't able to be in a studio. One example would be I have a pool. And so I'd go into the pool, create movement, come outside of the pool, and do the same movement, and see if I could mimic the feeling. So it's no longer me in a studio trying to pretend like I'm in a pool of water. It's me actually being in a pool of water, because why not? And so through that, I just created these experiences where I guess I didn't have to pretend I was in places anymore. I actually went to them. And it was very sensorial exploration, which, I don't know, these are all very beautiful things that came out of COVID. After the initial freak out, honestly. And so what I've been doing, I'll give you a little snippet of, I guess, like what my creative process would look like. I realized I choreograph differently than I improvised, and I tend to like my improvisation better. And I consider myself an improvisational movement artist. So I would improvise, I would film it, an improvisation. It could be 30 seconds. Maybe when I wake up, I have an idea, or it could be up to like 5 minutes, in a trance around my kitchen. But I'd improvise, record it, and then I'd look back at the recording and see what was intriguing to me. And then I'd learn it. And it usually took me a lot longer to learn my improvisation than it did to actually film it. So I'd learn the improvisation, and then I'd put it in different locations. So I do it in a pool, I do it in my living room, I do it in a studio, because the ASU studios are open if you're wearing a face mask and we sanitize. I do it outside in the grass, I do it when it, like in the sun, I do it in fluorescent lighting. And then building off of that, I would then repeat, because it's very cyclical. So I'd repeat until a new improvisation came, and I'd record it, and then the process would start again. So I guess I'll just show you guys a little bit of that. I've already done the improvisation, and then I learned a clip of the improvisation, and so I guess I'm wanting to show how the movement changes and transforms. And yeah. Okay, so I start out, it was a pretty short phrase. So it was just kick, around, down, swivel, press, around, and boom, 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 boom. All right. Then we repeat. And you're just repeating whatever you like about the movement. All right, so I made it bigger. I like it to be bigger all the way there. Comes around. Move on to the next part. I've changed. This sweep is bigger. Around, I still like that. Swivels up, that's the next part. So, we're going. I guess a jump, why not? Yeah, jump. Whew. All right. Whew. Let's bring it lower. Come up. This one's gonna be slow. All right, so I'd continue and go on until it was almost a non-recognizable phrase. And I'd continue and continue until I was sweating and drenched, and of course it's in my living room, so I'd be sliding all over the place. But lastly, I guess this is what I got. So here, jump. Whew. Swivel to the ground, come up slowly. Yes! Another one of my processes that I like to do that came about because of COVID was I'd scan my environment and I would interact with the objects in my environment in real time. So let's see. Here's a pillow. So the pillow, interact in real time, feeling the pillow, and then we transcribe it without the pillow. And since it's definitely, this is like a video, you can like get really into it. Or I guess like, usually I'd be by myself and I'd be able to, it'll be almost like a meditation, and I'm mimicking that push into the pillow, feel the pillow, up, and I flipped it over, and then I felt the pillow behind me, right? So then from there you already have a phrase. So pillow, pillow, oh, flip, and it's behind. Yeah, so I'd go through that process over and over again with different objects, and then I have this slew of phrases that has been taken out of context from my living room, but only I know that. So it's something very fun that I don't think I would have done if I hadn't been at my house all the time. So in all, I think that COVID has been, it's like impacted me a lot, but also I've been really grateful for the opportunities that I've had to explore things that I would have never explored if it wasn't for COVID. And we're always becoming more innovative. And so I love live dance, but I think I'm excited to explore what I love about it in a different context, right? So how do I show the muscles moving in space online? Or how do I show the muscles moving in space while people have to be 6 feet apart? How do I incorporate the community aspect of a live transitory experience with COVID guidelines, and so it's definitely a blessing and a curse. But thank you guys all for being here and coming with me on this journey of me sharing my creative process. So the ASU dance community is very special in a lot of ways. And I'm also a senior, so I have like a deep love for my cohort now, because we've been through a lot together. But I know at the beginning of quarantine, I was fine with it, like not seeing them at the beginning. And then we had one class, our senior capstone project class, and we had it in person. And at first I was like, oh, I'm so used to like not being on campus. So if I'm being completely transparent, I didn't completely feel like I wanted to go. But it's one of those things where you don't want to do it, but I mean, you need to do it. And so we went, and I think after reflecting, I reflected with them as well. I was like, that was so beautiful. Like, just the energy was different. And so I think the ASU dance community, at least with my cohort, it's like, it's filled with so much love, and it's hard not seeing them all the time. And then, I mean, it can also be filled with a lot of sadness because we've had one faculty member pass away, Marcus White, and then also another dance major, Armani, passed away within a short amount of time. And so I think there's also this mourning that's happened in our community that's brought us together. And then there's, of course, reform, learning that we always have to be learning, learning that things are able to change, like our curriculum. How are we able to make it more accessible for people who don't just think within like a Western framework, right? Or how do we make it more accessible to people of color? How do we make it a safe space for the LGBTQ community? How do we really raise our dance community to principle instead of these identities, while also respecting these identities and allowing there to be, I guess, like a unity in diversity? I think we're really learning about that. But that's all I can say about ASU's dance community. We're always wanting to do collaboration. We're always learning. Yeah. I guess my final statement about the ASU dance community, ASU's dance community within the past year has been through a lot pertaining to deaths, getting new freshmen, COVID. And I think that because of that, we've really learned about what really matters, and it has become more of a community and less of just a dance major. So right off the bat, I do have to say my plants, because with shelter in place and with everything going on, I definitely, it's a pendulum. So either I'm outside a lot or I'm inside a lot. And when I'm inside, I think it's so important for me to feel grounded. And I think that I definitely, like, my roommate helps a lot with like being with another living person, but also my plants, because they're living things. It's something that I can look at to calculate the passing of time, because I think what really affected us all during this was our relationship to time. In our Western world, 40-hour work week, 9 to 5, and it's very like scheduled out, right? And so our relationship to time changed completely. And so even I'd like plant seeds and just watching them grow, it's like, even if I feel stagnant, even if I feel as though my routine has become the same, because I am a student, so I have the same classes, or maybe I won't go outside, I can still see this plant and see how it's leading kind of a very different life than me. And it reminds me that time is passing, and I don't know, this plant doesn't have a schedule. It just grows, right? And I'm like, I don't want this strict schedule all the time. I just want to grow. So definitely my plant. Another one is my cat. Is my cat here? Well, Shadow. She is a large Russian blue, and another living being that is functioning differently than me, right? So I have me, I have my roommate who's another human, I have my plants that are on a different time zone, and then I have my cat who definitely is functioning differently than my plant and me and my roommate. And so I think shadow is something that makes my space feel more familiar. And I mean, she doesn't talk, so it's kind of just her vibe. And when she's not here, I notice it. So yeah, she's a pet, but she definitely adds to the ambiance of my home. And then lastly, I think it's just what I adorn myself with, how I do my hair, what I wear, the jewelry I wear. Because I was doing this other project with my friends, Coley, shouts out to Coley, and she wanted us to put on like a lot of jewelry. And I think at first, to me, I looked at, I looked at like maximalism. I think that's the word. Maximalism is kind of comforting to me. In a way, because it makes me comfortable with the chaotic. So if you see like in my house, it's still clean, but there's like a comfortable with a lot of plants everywhere, comfortable with a lot of fabric everywhere. Anyways, but this project, she had us put on this jewelry, and I think there's also what's it called? Materialism. Okay, so when she said, she's like, put on all of this jewelry, my first thought was materialism. I'm a very like spiritual, conceptual thinker, and so I just like really strive to be detached from like this material realm, I guess. And so at first I kind of had this negative relationship with putting on a bunch of jewelry and adorning myself. But then I did it, and it was almost ritualistic. We talked about how in our Western society we don't have a lot of ritual, and just simply adorning myself was a ritual, because then it made me mindful of the other things that I wanted to adorn myself with, right? So adorning myself with patience, adorning myself with love, adorning myself with joy, adorning myself, like what are these things that we want to adorn ourselves with that make our inner and outer being beautiful? And so I think, yeah, my third thing that makes me feel familiar or more free is actually that adorning and being mindful of what I'm adorning myself with. So for example, I wear these 2 rings a lot, and I dye my hair pink every now and then. Yeah, doing things that make the days not mesh together and make myself feel comfortable. So the works I did in Indiana was because after living in the Bahamas, I moved to the US and I moved to Indiana. And so the work that I did, like the theater production that I was in at Purdue University, it was because I was living there. And then I would also coordinate camps, like art camps for middle schoolers and things like that. I think definitely in the future, traveling is something that I do love, but it's also able to be taxing on the body. So just like finding something that is constantly grounding you. Because I feel as though, yeah, I do have different identities. I do have like loved ones in different places that I'm traveling to a lot. And in the future, I hope to make work like around the world. So just making sure that you have something that grounds you. I think there was this artist, and I want to, yeah, there's this artist, and after every show, I think it was Twyla Tharp, she would put her feet in a bucket of mud. Those are some of the rituals that I would love to develop in grounding. Like when in the future I go on tour, things like that. But yeah, to clarify, I just made work wherever I was. I wasn't necessarily like traveling to Indiana to create something. It's exciting. Like, it brings me so much joy to explore. I think play is such an important part of being a human being that sometimes we neglect, and I have the privilege of like being in the movement arts and playing. Um, and there's definitely this like giving yourself permission, and it's like, what do you have to give yourself permission for? And for the longest time I had to give myself permission to play. And so I would say exciting. I would also say surprising. I am choreographing this piece using trampolines. So it's very touch oriented with feet. And then also that feeling of being in the air. And that's surprising because we're not usually in the air, right? And then also sacred. I would say it's all three. As far as senses go, I haven't been doing a lot with taste, unless I do various pancake recipes or like coffee recipes. Gotta keep your life on edge. So I do that with like taste. And I also find it fascinating that people who do taste testing, there's like a tasting technique. So there's also this idea that like, how are you using your body as a technology, or how do you standardize your body in a way that you can perceive information like systematically. I think that's also fascinating to me. That's related to taste. Um, and then touch, a lot of it is touch. So like I said, trampoline, the pool, and then I also have a piece with like these streamers. And it's like, what does it mean to have streamers, to have a reflective exterior, to be able to see a little bit inside, but then also to have this light, consistent touch on you. There's been that. Smell, not so much. I think it's interesting you brought this up because now I want to explore these things and the relationship to movement. And then sound. Sound, I've had more time to listen to music, but also I think creating your own sound. Like I said, I'm in my home. A lot of the time I'm by myself a lot more. So it's creating your own sound, creating your own rhythm. And I think that like transcends what I'm hearing. It also, it goes into what is the rhythm of my body moving through space? What is the rhythm of me cooking eggs in the morning? What is the rhythm of my day? What is the rhythm of my week, my month, my year? And I think it's all exciting. I'm just curious all the time and have this wonder, and that's very joyful and very beautiful. Thank you. You can contact me on Instagram. It's at Zakiya Rose, or my website is zakiyarose.wordpress.com. And then pertaining to the transition show, the senior capstone project, my work, Pain for Public Consumption, will be premiering February 4th through the 6th. And I just want to say thank you so much to the Each Measure series and everyone who helped in this recording.